Welcome to Middle Nation, a movement that addresses the influence of corporate power in our society. We advocate engaging with corporate leaders in their own language, not by choice, but because it is necessary. You might wonder, can we truly make a difference through the mechanisms of capitalism? It seems improbable, but we are not discussing traditional capitalism. We are talking about leveraging the core priority of corporations, their financial interests. These multinational entities, with vast resources and often questionable ethics, operate primarily in the language of profit. Therefore, we must use economic influence to hold them accountable. Join us as we explore how individuals, empowered by their purchasing decisions and a commitment to justice, can challenge and transform corporate power. To understand the potential of collective action, we must revisit the era of apartheid in South Africa. During this period, a global movement emerged, targeting corporations that supported the apartheid regime. Activists recognized that impacting these companies' profit margins could compel them to withdraw their support, contributing to the dismantling of apartheid. And indeed, this strategy proved effective. Through boycotts, divestments, and international pressure, corporations faced with financial losses began to withdraw from South Africa. This was not a coincidence. It was a strategic, coordinated effort demonstrating that corporations, when faced with significant financial consequences, can be persuaded to act ethically. These decisions were not driven by a sudden moral awakening among CEOs. Rather, they were pragmatic responses to the high financial costs of supporting apartheid. The anti-apartheid movement illustrated that collective action, even against formidable challenges, can achieve significant results. It showed that ordinary individuals, by leveraging their economic influence, could compel powerful entities to change. This movement was not confined to South Africa. It marked a pivotal moment for global activism. It demonstrated that change can originate from grassroots efforts, driven by the collective power of the people. This principle is at the core of Middle Nation. We are not waiting for corporations to change voluntarily. We are targeting their financial interests, compelling them to address the consequences of their actions. Now, let's journey eastward to India, a nation grappling with its own set of corporate-fueled challenges, where the stakes are incredibly high for millions of people. In 2020, Indian farmers initiated one of the largest protests in human history. These were not ordinary demonstrations. They were massive, determined, and unyielding. These were intense tractors on the tarmac protests against a series of agricultural laws that threatened their livelihoods and their very way of life. These laws were heavily skewed in favor of large agricultural businesses, leaving small farmers at a significant disadvantage. It was a clear tilt towards the powerful. For over a year, these farmers, the backbone of the Indian economy, stood their ground, facing water cannons, tear gas, and the full force of a government seemingly more interested in corporate interests than in protecting its own people. Their resilience was extraordinary. This was a classic David versus Goliath battle, with millions of farmers confronting powerful corporations and a government determined to ignore their concerns. It was a fight for survival. But these farmers were resolute, knowing that their unity was their strength. They understood the power they held, the power of their labor and their unity. They knew that together they could make a difference. They disrupted supply chains, boycotted products, and blocked major trade routes, significantly impacting the Indian economy. Their actions had a ripple effect that could not be ignored, and it worked. Their persistence paid off, faced with unrelenting pressure from the farmers and a public outcry that could no longer be ignored. The Indian government finally relented. It was a monumental moment. They repealed the controversial farm laws, handing the farmers a historic victory, and proving that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, people power can prevail. It was a triumph for grassroots activism. The Indian farmers' protests are a testament to the power of grassroots economic activism. They demonstrated that organized collective action can lead to significant change. They showed the world that when people come together, organize strategically, and target the economic interests of those in power, they can achieve real, meaningful change. It was a lesson in solidarity and strategy. This wasn't just a win for Indian farmers, it was a beacon of hope for marginalized communities around the world, a shining example of what's possible when people decide they've had enough and are willing to fight for their rights. It was an inspiration to many, and it's a reminder that in today's interconnected world, the fight for justice transcends borders. We are all in this together. The tactics employed by the Indian farmers, disruption, boycott, and collective action, are tactics that can be replicated and adapted to challenge corporate power on a global scale. They set a powerful precedent. At Middle Nation, we draw inspiration from these courageous farmers, amplifying their stories and connecting their struggle to a global movement for economic justice. We are committed to spreading their message. We're providing a platform for people to share their experiences, learn from one another, and build solidarity across borders. We believe in the power of shared knowledge and collective action. We believe that the fight for a more just and equitable world requires a global response, a united front against corporate greed and government overreach. Together, we can make a difference. The Indian farmers' protests have shown us what's possible when we harness the power of collective action. Their victory is a roadmap for others. Now, it's up to us to take up the mantle, to learn from their example, and to continue the fight for a world where corporations serve the people, not the other way around. We must carry forward their legacy, because when we stand together, when we raise our voices in unison, and when we target the economic interests of those in power, we can achieve anything. The power of unity is unstoppable. Let's discuss the United States, a nation known for its ideals of freedom and bravery. However, it is also a place where many individuals rely on low-wage jobs to survive. We are delving into the Fight for $15 movement, a grassroots campaign that has gained substantial traction over the years. Before dismissing this as another demand for higher wages, understand that this movement is about much more than that. This is not about luxury items. It is about fundamental human rights. It is about basic human dignity and the right to a fair wage for a hard day's work. Many individuals work tirelessly, often juggling multiple jobs, yet still struggle to afford rent and basic necessities. This is the harsh reality for many. These workers are essential to our society, performing tasks such as serving food, making coffee, and cleaning public spaces, often for wages that are insufficient. They deserve better. For years, they have been told to be grateful for whatever they receive. However, this narrative is changing. They are no longer content with minimal compensation. They are standing up for their rights. They are demanding a living wage, a reasonable and just request. They are not asking for extravagant luxuries. They seek fairness. They want to live with dignity and security without having to choose between paying rent and buying groceries. Some argue that raising the minimum wage will harm businesses and lead to job losses. However, let's examine this claim more closely. This argument is often repeated, but it lacks credibility. It is time to move beyond these outdated notions. Numerous studies have debunked the myth that raising the minimum wage is detrimental to the economy. The evidence is clear. In fact, it has the opposite effect. It stimulates economic activity. When people have more money, they spend it, boosting the economy from the bottom up. Increased spending leads to higher demand, which creates more jobs. More importantly, consider the human cost of inaction, the toll it takes on people's lives. The stress, anxiety, and exhaustion of living paycheck to paycheck, wondering if they can afford groceries or rent. It is a constant struggle. This struggle affects not only individuals, but also our society. It impacts mental health, family stability, and community well-being. The next time someone complains about the price of a Big Mac increasing due to higher wages, remind them that the true cost of cheap labor is far greater. It is a cost we all bear. The fight for $15 was not an unrealistic dream. It was a well-organized movement. These individuals did not wait for a wealthy benefactor to save them. They organized, mobilized, and took action. They took to the streets, demanding to be heard. Their voices were clear and resolute. They held strikes, shutting down restaurants and compelling corporations to pay attention. They made their presence known. They raised awareness about the plight of low-wage workers and educated the public. They boycotted, impacting companies' bottom lines. They utilized their collective power. Their efforts were successful. They achieved their goals. Cities and states across the country began raising their minimum wages. The movement initiated change. Major corporations, feeling pressure from both workers and consumers, started offering higher wages and better benefits. They could not ignore the movement. The fight for $15 demonstrates the power of collective action. It shows what can be achieved when people unite. It illustrates that when people come together, raise their voices, and refuse to be ignored, they can effect real change. It is a powerful message. This story provides hope and serves as a reminder of what we can achieve together. The fight is not over. There is still work to be done. While many cities and states have adopted a $15 minimum wage, the federal minimum wage remains at $7.25 an hour, a rate insufficient for basic living expenses. This must change. So, what can you do to contribute to this ongoing fight? Support businesses that pay their employees a living wage. Make conscious choices. Contact your elected officials and demand a higher minimum wage. Your voice matters. Stand in solidarity with low-wage workers fighting for a better future. Their struggle is our struggle. Their fight is our fight. And together, we can create a more just and equitable society for all. Let's make it happen. Today, we delve into the complex and controversial history of Nestle. Nestle, a name synonymous with household products, has a history fraught with ethical concerns. While many recognize Nestle for its popular chocolate bars and coffee, the company's practices have raised significant moral questions. Their history is marred by controversies that are as troubling as a neglected public space. One of the most serious issues involves the aggressive marketing of baby formula in developing countries, which has been linked to infant malnutrition and mortality. Additionally, there have been numerous accusations of child labor within their cocoa supply chains. Nestle has also been criticized for exploiting water resources, leaving communities without access to clean water. These issues have led many to reconsider their consumption of Nestle products. In response, people around the world have mobilized to hold Nestle accountable. They have organized boycotts targeting Nestle's financial interests. From Manila to rural India, these boycotts have gained global traction. Activists have utilized social media to spread awareness and encourage others to join the boycott. This movement has been driven by a collective sense of justice and ethical responsibility. The impact on Nestle has been significant, with noticeable declines in sales and reputation. These boycotts have forced Nestle to confront the consequences of their actions. While boycotts alone may not compel corporations to change, they are a powerful tool for accountability. They can bring corporations to the negotiating table and drive meaningful change. In Nestle's case, the combined pressure from boycotts and activist groups has led to some policy changes. Nestle has introduced new policies to address child labor and improve environmental practices. However, it is important to remain vigilant and not be complacent. Nestle still has a long way to go before it can be considered an ethical company. Their commitments must be scrutinized and verified. Promises, much like political rhetoric, can often be empty. The Nestle case underscores the power of collective action. When consumers unite, they can compel corporations to listen and act. As consumers, we have both a voice and a choice. We can choose to support companies that align with our values or withdraw our financial support from those that do not. Next time you shop, consider the ethics of the companies behind the products. Do their values align with yours? If not, consider choosing an alternative. Every dollar spent is a vote for the kind of world we want to live in. Do we want a world where corporations exploit people and the planet for profit? Or a world where corporations are held accountable and operate ethically? The choice is ours. Our actions, no matter how small, can contribute to a larger movement for change. Ladies and gentlemen, we no longer need to plead with politicians to take action. We don't have to wait for justice to descend from the top. With Middle Nation, we are constructing a global movement that addresses power directly. We will hold corporations accountable and redirect their power towards our goals. Together, we will make justice profitable and injustice prohibitively expensive. The rise of private sector power presents us with a unique opportunity to effect change. Let's seize it. Let's transform justice from an ideal into a tangible reality.